Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Similarly Different. Now, on this week's episode, I wanted to get down to business, and there was only one person that instantly came to my mind, none other than one of the leading ladies in my life who makes sure that I not only have my brain in order, but my business and my money. And that is the CEO of my management company, Pamela Zapata.
Love that. What an introduction.
Thank you. I really pride myself in trying really hard to give good intros in how I see the people so that they can see what I see.
We love it. We're here for it. I love it.
Thank you for being on my podcast episode.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. Now this season is all about like going to the next level of your life or reinventing yourself, going to the next level of greatness. And when I was thinking about business, specifically self-made business, specifically 1099 business, specifically creative business, all those realms, influencer, model, actress, TV host, I thought of you because a lot of people may know your story because she's been on Business Insider, on Forbes, all the stuff. She's a big time, guys. but others may not. And more importantly, I think that a lot of people that may look up to you or want to one day be a part of Society 18 as clients, or one day may want to go and venture off from their 9 to 5 and do what they really are passionate about, would really get something from this conversation, because I think it's conversations that we have all the time.
Yeah.
But for those that don't know you, just let everybody know a little bit about yourself and who you are and the company that you have.
Yeah. So as she mentioned, my name is Pamela Zapata. I'm the founder and CEO of Society 18. We are an influencer management and marketing agency based out of LA, but we also have a team in New York. And my background came from working initially in TV production and development. I started my career in Writing Secret Productions, worked in unscripted development for 2 years, then worked at E! Entertainment for about 4 years in program planning, acquisition, and then made my way into talent and casting. And then what I realized is that instead of casting traditional celebrities, there was an interest in influencer castings. Instead of hiring like actors and reality TV stars, they wanted YouTubers, they wanted Instagrammers. And it was this massive shift that happened, in my opinion, really fast. And then that's when I was like, all right, there's something here. So went to Style Hall back in the day, which is no longer in existence, RIP, but worked in talent management there for a little bit. And then that's when I kind of realized, like, I want to do this, but I'm not ready yet. Moved to New York and then started working overseeing Unilever and Estee Lauder influencer marketing. So overseeing Estee Lauder, Bobbi Brown, MAC, Aveda, Origins, and then overseeing Unilever business, which was Dove, Suave, Tresemme. So I was handling all of their influencer campaigns and noticed a lack of diversity. And then from there, I was like, there has to be something that I can do that is still in the space, but that I'm more passionate about. And so I quit and I started Society 18, which is my little labor of love. And it initially became a side hustle, but then became my full-time job.
And what made you take, and I've asked you this before, because fun fact, we had a trial podcast together. I'm like, I have to say it at some point, but we had a trial podcast and I was about to ask you a question. And I was like, wait, I've asked her this before. And I was like, oh no, wait, it was in the podcast. So what made you take the jump from your 9 to 5 to finally say this month, this week, this year, it's going to be the time that I finally take that jump and, you know, take a risk?
Yeah. So I had thought about it. I had been thinking about it for about 1.5 years before I actually quit. I was working at one agency and then I got poached to go to another agency. I was like, I don't really know. I kind of want to start my own thing, but I was like, you know what, let me just see this through. And I told myself, all right, I'm going to save, X amount of money before I quit and start. And I don't know if you believe in God or the universe or whatever, but I hit a point where I was burning out. I was tired. I wasn't eating. I was working crazy hours at the agency. And I just felt like it was time to stop. Like I just broke down. I don't know if anyone has ever had like quarter life crises. I've had like 3 at this point, but there's something that is in you that is telling you that it's time, even though it's not a part of your timeline. Because I think we talk about this a lot, as putting together a timeline on like the things that we want to accomplish by certain ages or years. And, sometimes you just have to lean in and just take some time and be quiet with yourself and see where you're being pulled to go. And I wasn't ready in my head, but it was time and I quit. And I literally handed in my computer, sent an offboarding email, and that day went on LegalZoom and was like, how do I do my LLC? And figured it out like that day. And then that's how it started. And I can't even believe we are where we are today, to be honest.
How long has it been now?
5 years in June.
So exciting.
Yeah.
Now, from then, to then a happy moment that you were like, this is why I was meant to do this? What was that moment for you once you opened Society 18?
You know, it's so interesting. I have those moments periodically, and I think I had another moment at our last mixer. We have an biannual influencer creator / brand and agency mixer. We invite all of our agency and brand clients and all of our creators, and we had over 100 people at that mixer. And I think that was another one of those moments, like probably one of the biggest I've had, on top of like Forbes and Business Insider features, that I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. Like I did that. Like to have an idea in your brain, just like you and this podcast, and to be able to execute on that and see it come to life is just super fulfilling.
Yeah, and I think those are the little tokens that God, like you said, God or the universe. For me, it's God, that God is like, okay, I'm just reminding you that you're in the right path. And I always say it's so scary to be able to take a jump on something that, you know, a 9-to-5 gives you benefits. It gives you insurance sometimes. It gives you different things, but it also is for somebody else. You are working for somebody else. You can still create greatness. And sometimes, you know, a 9-to-5 is somebody's purpose, and it is somebody's, you know, maybe a person listening to this could be like, I don't want to open a business, and that's fine. It could be that maybe you're just not in the right category. You're not going for that role. You're not going for that position, or you're not going for that company that you really want to work for. And I think that every time that you take the leap of faith and actually trust in yourself and believe in yourself after doing the diligent work to make sure that you're ready for when the work comes, when the questions comes, when the crunch time comes for you to really deliver, God will always provide tokens of affirmation and validation that our inner soul really wants and needs. Because you could have a company, so many people could tell you, you're doing great. But it's a moment like seeing everyone in the room moving and shaking, and you're just pausing for a second and being like, oh, you just like feel it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a warm hug, you know?
Yeah.
And you never know what that is for anybody else. But when you feel it, you feel it. And you're like, this is what people are talking about. You know, I always say for me, when I'm on set, whether it be hosting a show or even with like the Genesis campaign, like I have so many variables that other people could be like, she's under 100,000 on Instagram. She's not verified. She doesn't come from a, you know, a celebrity family. She's never dated a celebrity. She's never had a big viral moment. Why would a company like Genesis, or why would a brand like YSL want to work with her? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I have brains. I have creativity. I am a hard freaking worker.
You are.
And I am so meticulous and detailed. Why can't I get that opportunity? And I think like for me, like I've always thought that way about life, where sometimes I do believe that if you're thinking that way and not putting in the work, then like there is a little bit of like a mis-equation. But if you are doing it, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I strongly believe that luck, what people see as luck, is when preparation meets opportunity. And I think people behind the scenes who don't know the work that you've put in and that I've put in could just see, you know, what they see on social and think, oh my God, events and parties and campaigns, like she lives such a glorious and fun and exciting life, but no one knows all the relationships that were built, all the work that was put in, all the times that you're like working 12, 14-hour days, like the events after events after events, and at the end of the day, you're drained.
Yeah.
And that takes time away from other things. Like there's sacrifices as like an entrepreneur or working for yourself that you have to make for the greater good of the goal, right? And what you really want to do. And I think a lot of people don't know all the sacrifices and aren't willing to make those sacrifices. And it's fine because it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
And when you said that you started opening your business and you saw the lack of diversity in different campaigns and brand deals and things of that sort, and you opened it up, how did you navigate being able to say, okay, I had this idea, I saw the gap, now I want to make sure that that encompasses my company and it never kind of swifts to the right? Because you could start it off with like, 5, 10, inclusive and very detailed type of creators that you were like, these are the ones that are being forgotten about. And then your company starts growing and you kind of lose that mission. How do you make sure to keep your mission of, I want to give opportunities for minorities, for people that, are not looked correctly, I guess you can say.
Overlooked.
Yeah, overlooked. There we go.
Yeah, I would say that's always been my mission and my passion. And I think even though we've grown and expanded and niched out, for me, the name of the company was Society 18. So I wanted to be a representation of what society looks like, right? So originally I started working with like women and men from marginalized communities that I felt like were underrepresented. So these bigger management agencies were working only with, they would have Black and brown creators, but I wasn't seeing deep skin tones. I wasn't seeing coily hair. I wasn't seeing plus size women. I wasn't seeing Muslim women, people with disabilities. Like there's so much much diversity first and foremost that isn't really being represented. But for me as a woman of color, I really wanted to focus there on like Black and brown creators. And since then we've grown. So I would say we have about 40 creators, and I want to say like over about 85% are men and women of color. But for me, I wanted to make sure that as, you know, an agency trying to represent what society looks like, that we are representing people from all walks of life, all races, and all ethnicities. So we've niched out, but the core of who we are has still remained. And like, I'm still extremely passionate about working with, you know, people who look like me, making sure that they get, you know, to work with dream brands, as, you know, you have in the past couple of years that we've been working together, and it's been great to see. But it's like really something that is important to me because I'm really big about building generational wealth, especially for people of color. And so it's like we have to help each other out.
Yeah. And something that I really like that society has done is not only offer brand deals or be there to, you know, present a team, but you're always trying to find ways, like you said, to enrich the people inside the roster or inside your team in general, even managers, in the sense of, you know, finding different options for us if we need therapists, or if you have somebody that, you know, does finance, and being like, hey, they're willing to do a workshop. Hey, do you guys want to learn about, you know, a savings retirement fund? And it's so much more than just management. It's kind of like management meets development of the human. You know, and I think it's so important because, I mean, I've had 4 or 5 managers in the past, and I could say out of those 4 or 5 managers, you and one other manager, when I've had my meltdowns or my, you know, my burnt out phases, you guys have actually cared, and you guys are like, everything can stop. It's okay. We can deal with the calls of whether the client is mad or the brand is angry. Like, you are not okay. Let's fix that first.
Yeah.
And I think that's really valuable because a lot of the times, even in the world that we live in, being independent contractors, whether you're a model, actress, creator, dancer, I can say this for many creatives, at some point we feel like a robot, and people kind of forget to humanize us. And I think that even for me, when I was on the manager side of artist, it was so important for me to be like, I need for everybody to remember that this is still a human. We need to know how they're doing today.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you've always like tried to figure out ways to implement that. And I guess in return, I want to ask you, how have you been able to figure out, I don't think you've totally figured it out because I know her on a personal level.
I feel like I'm still figuring it all out. Everyone, we're all just figuring it out.
How have you tried to figure out how to have a better work-life balance? I feel like this year you've done better than last year.
I did. I have.
Yeah.
I have. It's honestly something I struggle with every day, every hour of every day. Even last night I was working until like 9 or 10 o'clock. I have put together boundaries for myself and also just rules that I don't bring my laptop into my bed anymore, which was like a thing that people may not think is a big deal, but I have my home office, which is also our guest room. And then I used to go from the home office into my bed and work just all night. And what I realized is that my room is my happy place and my zen place. We don't bring work in there. And then my office is for work. Maybe I'll bring it down to the living room or whatever, or the kitchen to like work, but I've carved out a couple spaces in my house where I work, and my bed in my room is like off limits. I think that's one thing. And I think second is I have to constantly remind myself that there's always going to be work to be done. There's always pitching we can do. There's always business development that I can do. There's always self-development that I can be doing, whether it's building my own brand or like even, you know, we talked about the podcast. I want to like launch my podcast, or I want to write a book, and I want to do more speaking engagements. Like there's always things that I can be doing because that's how my brain functions. But I've had to learn to like remind myself constantly that there's, you know, only like 8 to 10 hours in the day that you should be working, and that I need to do things outside of that to keep my balance. So like I force myself to work out in the morning. Like when I can go to events and see you guys out, I will try to do that, just because when I'm in a work mode and I don't do anything outside of that, I get really low. And then if I do it too much, it can lead to like depression, because I've been there before. So I have to catch myself and find ways to create happy moments and carve out times for my friends, carve out times for dating, which is really ghetto out here, but we have to do it. And it's challenging, but I try to remind myself that literally daily, I kid you not.
Yeah. So I would say 3 things that you mentioned is finding places that are off limit for work, where you're really going to be, whether it's sitting, enjoying time, or just zen, finding a time schedule, because I think that's really important. And business owners or people that their life is their job, aka me, to be like, you don't have to film right now. You don't have to create.
You don't have to go to every event, Yanina.
Oh yeah, I listen. I've been better in the last few months because I am a networking queen. And I pride myself in that. Every opportunity that I have gotten, like up to want to say last year, it was probably because the people have met me in real life, you know. And I think it's so overlooked. If you don't have the numbers, you better have the personality to be remembered in the room, you know, when you're not in there. And I always told myself, okay, maybe I don't have the money, I don't have the funds, I don't have the marketing, I don't have the big management company or agency like WME or CAA or whatever representing me, but I'm me and I'm my own representation. So you're better gonna believe that when I walk out of that room, you're still gonna remember me.
Yeah.
And I've done it thus far. But now that I'm in a different stage of my life, and in a different bracket and in a different place where I want to grow different things, I'm like, okay, I've done enough events. I've done enough this. I don't have to go to everything. I'm more selective. But I do feel that when you're starting it is really important. But okay, so we said off limits, boundaries to times of when you're on, and finding time to do things that refuel you, like whether it's working out, exercise, going to therapy, going for walks, being with girlfriends, you know. And I think that's so important because I know that I do it myself as well. And some of my friends, new friends, when I meet new people, they get so surprised that I'm not pulling out my phone to record things. I will say I have a bad habit of like editing in front of people. I don't know why.
You'll edit mid conversation. I'm like, what are you doing?
No, I was at a club. I was at a nightclub, okay, for somebody's birthday 3 weeks ago. And my friend Brittany Elena looks over at me and I have my phone like this and she goes, do you have CapCut open right now? And I was like, yeah, girl, I want to get this video up tomorrow. And she was like, yo, you just inspired me. And now every time she sees me, she tells everyone, she was like, she had CapCut open at Warwick for an event that we were at.
Stop.
And I was like, listen, when you got to get it done, you got to get it done. But I think for me, I'm trying to also create those balances because I feel like because I lead with so much creativity and strategy as my brain, I always use the example of when your phone is on 3%, the first thing anybody does is start closing out apps that, you know, take too much memory. For me, it's like if I have Snapchat open, I know it's eating up my battery. I don't know why Snapchat eats up battery so much, but I close that, I go to the socials, and then I start closing editing apps and it's still taking away battery. So it starts acting slower. So how do you expect the human brain to be working at 100%, to be thinking of greatness when you're at that percentage? Now, I do understand me, you, Courtney, all work great under stress. And magic does come out on it. Does not mean it is healthy. Does not mean it is healthy. No. And it does not mean that the magic that we think is coming out couldn't have been even greater.
Yeah.
If we would have been like, let's plan this out. Let's do this without having a mental breakdown and probably crying in between, but being like, hey, we did it.
Yeah. And I will say, as much as we are like workaholics, there's a power in if anyone does meditation, because we're super high functioning. I am, you are, I'm sure the women on the set are as well, because that's just how we roll. But I would say that there's a power to shut your brain off. At the end of the day, that's another thing I do. I meditate every night. And so the things, when you can finally shut off your like active brain waves and like get into like, not like, I don't know if you've ever done a sound meditation where you're not, it's the most calming thing, but there's I can't remember where you end up, but it's like you're not fully awake, but you're not fully asleep. And there's a magic that happens in that time that you can actually process the day, process your feelings, and things actually show up for you in terms of whether it's, depending what you're meditating on, if it's relationship, if it's business, things have shown up for me, whether most specifically business, where I've shut my brain off and I'll meditate on where do I see myself in next year, what's important to me, how do we scale, what am I passionate about, where am I gonna go? And there's a power in that. So I would challenge everyone, especially super high functioning individuals, to take at least 5 to 10 minutes. You can make magic happen at 20 to 30 minutes, to be honest. But even if you start small, there's a lot that comes into your conscious when you're meditating, and you can do even more good.
Yeah.
Than you can imagine.
I love sound baths as well. And every time I do a sound bath or like I do a sound bath meditation, I genuinely feel like I'm floating afterwards.
Yeah.
Like it's just like nothing can bother me, nothing can touch me. And I'm just like,
It's a piece.
Yeah.
It's a piece.
And I think it's really important. And I think that for sure my high functioning comes from a little bit of overextending. I'm feeling like I have to solidify myself in wherever I am. But I think as we get older and we start learning about worth and we start really truly believing and seeing ourselves in worth and how worthy we are, those loud noises kind of calm down and trickle down.
And I will say too, because it's interesting even hearing you talk about me from a business perspective, I don't see you the way you see yourself because you're like the numbers and the followers and this and that. I'm like, girl, you're killing it.
Yeah.
And there's people with numbers that are not killing it.
Right.
So I feel like I would challenge creators to think about quality over quantity because I think there's this misconception that people who have like 500,000 followers or more are making bank. And there's a lot of influencer creators that are not making a 6-figure salary in this business.
Yeah.
So I would say like, give yourself a little more credit.
Yeah.
I want to give you some flowers.
Thank you. Well, I also think it's like a great merge into what is a creator and what does it take to be a creator and the business side of it, which I wanted to talk to you about as well. Because yes, I do downplay myself and it's more of like a reminding myself. I don't know if it's being a Latina. I don't know if it's being a woman. I don't know if it's a mixture of all of it. For me personally, I've always been in the middle type person. And it's like one of the biggest things that I battle with, which is when inclusivity came out, like became popular and became a thing, I kind of fell in the middle because when I grew up in modeling, I was never tall enough. I was never super thin. Then everybody started choosing, you know, people with disabilities or plus size, and I still fell in the middle because I didn't have anything that they started choosing, but I didn't have this from back in the day either. So it was like, then you go into the influencer world or I went into commercials and the same thing happened. In commercials, they were like, do you have a following? And I'm like, what? I'm auditioning for this. Why are you asking me if I have a following? They're like, oh, we're hiring for TV hosts and for commercials, we're hiring people with a following. So then in the TV hosting world, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So then I went into blogging. Then I go into blogging and they're like, how many followers do you have so that you can get a brand deal? And I'm like, oh my freaking gosh, I keep battling in every aspect of my career being stuck in the middle. I'm never to one side or none to the other. And now it depends also on the perception of the viewer. Some people are like, she gets brand deals because she's pretty. Other people are like, she's not going to get brand deals because she's pretty, because we need something that makes her a little bit off. More relatable.
Yeah.
You know, we need, if she was like plus size or if she was taller or if she was, again, from a celebrity or if she had like a celebrity association or if she had gone viral and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do the work and the work is going to show for it. And it has shown for it. But I think that now in a market that is very saturated, but there's always space in my opinion, because a creative is a creative and a person that comes up with great ideas has a space. They just have to make it known. What do you think is the biggest misconception that influencers have before getting management?
So I think we've been getting a lot of inquiries now for representation. And now, because we are a bigger business, we have revenue thresholds. So you typically have to be making at least 6 figures to even like have a potential conversation with us. We'll take conversations with people who have less just because we're open to potential. But as a business now, there's so many resources that we have to put forward to bring on talent. We do onboarding calls, we do strategy calls, we do content calendar calls, we handle legal, we handle finance. We also do like bi-weekly calls if we want more. Then we do 30, 60, 90 calls and calls and calls on calls. Like we are really invested in our talent. So for us, those are hours. Everyone's getting paid a salary. So there has to be some revenue coming in.
Yeah.
And not to say that all management companies are like this. There's some that will take you based off of your potential. Usually it can be, they're like maybe a lot smaller. Or if they see that, if they have really strong relationships with brands and agencies that they know they can close deals, then yeah, fine, totally fine. But I think for us, there has to be some revenue there, because as much as I would love to move forward with potential, it doesn't always work because our relationships are strong. But if the creator's not putting in the work, if they haven't already built a business for themselves, we're better bringing someone who's built a business to the next level versus building a business from scratch.
So when I was a manager, I used to have this rule, and we used to always tell it to all of our clients, is a manager's job is never to take you from 0 to 100. It's not even to take you from 0 to 50. A manager's job is to take you from 60 to 100, which means they're putting in the 40% to push you in the end. You know, it's like, but you have to already have the car moving and the car going. And I think there's a little thing that happens when you get management initially in any industry, and I've seen it happen to myself included, and I caught myself and I'd be like, what are you doing? That it's like you work so hard, you sign to a management company, and then you kind of stop. And you get this like 3-month period of like, okay, well, I have managers. I don't have to work anymore, right? Like they'll just bring it to me. And it's like, no, you still have to keep the gasoline going in the car that you already were moving so that they can come in and do their job. And I've spoken to friends who are creators of different realms and they're like, how do I get signed to management? How do I get signed to your management? Or how do I go about looking management? And the first thing I always tell them is, are you already making money that is making you financially successful? And they're like, no, that's why I need management. I said, wait, you're looking at it wrong. You're looking at it wrong because when, let's not say influencers, let's say musicians, when a songwriter or a producer wants to be managed, they could have amazing songs. That in itself is real estate. So there is potential in that a manager can come in and put you into rooms and whatever. But if you're already not having any work on your own, let's say you're an artist. If you're not already uploading covers at minimum, showing the way you would create and be, you know, a creative director to your own brand, because nowadays no label is going to go build a Britney Spears. You need to already bring Britney Spears already done to them, right? So it's like, if you're already not doing the creative, the business, the social work that you know, unfortunately, whether you like to be on social media or not, needs to be done, what is going to entice the other person to go work for you for free in hopes that what they lock in for you brings money in for both of you guys? Because at the end of the day, a manager doesn't make money unless you make money.
Yeah. And then on top of that, if you're not already putting the work in and we're having strategy calls, content calendar calls, how do I know you're capable of doing the work? Period.
Right. You're not going to burn out after one call because of the idea of it. Figuring out like, oh my God, now this is so much work. Like I have friends that are actresses and they're trying to get into the influencer space. And I recently saw one at a gifting suite and she was like, I really want a manager. She goes, but you know what? Can I ask you a question? And I said, yeah, sure. What's up? And she goes, do you think I would be good with a social media manager when I don't really like to post content? And I said, so what do you want a manager for? And she goes, well, you know, I used to have like a Lancome campaign through a friend that's inside Lancome, but she just left. But she's like, I just don't see myself doing tutorials or get readies with me. Like, I just want to like do event recaps and like, you know, take pictures when there's like professional photographers or Getty Images photographers. But I don't really want to do like the day-to-day thing. And I said, you're not going to get that. Maybe you can get brand deals from an agent if you're signed to an agent. But I don't think a manager is going to see the value in that because you have to wake up and every day think of ways of doing things in your work. That's why I need to create time where I'm literally not creating, because from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, my brain is like, what am I doing? What can I do? What is this moment? What is that? Oh, I should probably do this. Writing it down, executing it, editing it, sending voice notes to my manager, sending voice notes to my editors, because it's my life at this point. So if you're not that invested, how do you expect a company, a person to back you and say, I also believe in you? And that's in anything, as an artist, a songwriter, producer, influencer, actress, you know, anything.
Yeah.
So I think that it's like a little bit hard because it being so saturated nowadays, which is great. Everybody, if you can be a creator, great. But sometimes you have like a person from Iowa that happens to go viral on a TikTok video and they're like, oh, screw this. I got 15 million on one video. I can be a creator.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the concept that it truly is a business on its own.
Yeah.
There's a brand. There's things and companies that I have not worked with out of looking for longevity, out of looking for different things, out of looking for who does Yanina want to be, want to represent, want to embody in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. And you have to love it because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of pressure. And I want to go back to something you said about once you got management, you stopped working.
Oh yeah, the 3 months.
Because I feel like a lot of creators think that way, but it's so much better for both teams to be working because we could send pitches on pitches on pitches, but creators do get more responses on pitches than management teams do, unless like obviously we have a great relationship with them. And we're all just like, you're just going to increase your revenue through your relationships and through your own pitching. And I would say for anyone out there who has management and gave up, put the work in still, which you still do through your relationships at the events. And you're really great at fostering relationships and keeping them and growing them. But I would say relationships are very important.
Yeah.
And you have to really love, like I think people love the idea of being an influencer, but they don't actually want to put the work in. And it takes work and consistency, especially nowadays because of how saturated it is.
Yeah.
And it's like the people that are posting reels every day, TikToks every day, those are the ones that have a higher likelihood of going viral, have a higher likelihood of growing. And that's just what it takes.
And even if you're not going viral, I think that like brands still see the potential of a hard worker, the potential of quality content, the potential of this is really great ideas. Because I went viral January, February, March, April, and then I stopped going viral. on TikTok. And I was like, what the heck?
And also
But
virality, like only 0.01% of content goes viral. And I feel like everybody wants to go viral, but it's actually really hard to go viral. So everyone should give themselves grace. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think it's more about consistency and hard work that will showcase through than you having one viral moment and then forgotten about, or not doing anything with that viral moment. Because a lot of the times people will go viral and they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to talent management and onboarding people, what is something that you think if somebody says, okay, well, I do the hard work, I'm consistent, I am looking for management, I just don't know what are some key things that I should look for in a management, whether it's a big company or I want to start smaller and it's just one person. Like, what are 3 questions that you would suggest that they ask to see if the management would work for them?
Yeah, so I always flip it back to them and ask them what are they looking for management, and I start my calls that way only because there's some people that come that say, hey, I have all this business, I can't manage comms, I can't do follow-ups, legal's killing me, the finance part is annoying, and they want an agency to help with just that. And then if you get me deals, even better, right? So we're like, cool, we can easily support with that. There's other creators that come and say, I just want you to bring me deals. Like, I have my own business, I just want you to bring me deals. And we are always hesitant to move forward with anyone with that approach only because our business is very different per creator. So there's some creators that it's 50-50, 50 us, 50 them in terms of deal flow. There's some creators that 80-20, there's some creators that are 20-80. And we never guarantee that we can onboard you and bring you deals. So I always like to ask, what is the expectation? Because I feel like that then helps us understand, are we a good fit? And I think vice versa. I think creators, before going into these calls, should understand, what do they want? Do they want a strategic partner? Do they want someone to help with their revenue? Do they want someone to help with like content calendars? Do they want a friend? Sometimes people just want to talk through. Sometimes we get some moms that are just like, I just need someone to talk to because my kids are driving me crazy. And I feel like I need someone to help me get out of this just family content because I want to do beauty and I want to do lifestyle and I want to do more than, I'm not just a mom and I've become just a mom because that's kind of where my bandwidth is limited. And so I would say for creators coming in, ask like, what value do you bring as a management company? Also, and understand like, what can they bring to the table in terms of support? Like for us, obviously we handle pitching, individual pitching, we put forward for castings, we also handle legal, we also handle finance, but that's kind of bare bones in my opinion. On top of that, we also do events. Obviously you come to our mixers, our brand and agency mixers. We did a Coachella house last year, we activated Essence Fest, we want to go to Cannes next year, we want to do a Super Bowl watch party. So on top of the basic services, we also do events. And then on top of that, we also offer resources to build you as a business owner, right? So like the things you talked about in terms of mental health, in terms of financial awareness and education, which is really important. So just find out from them, what do they offer as a management team? Second, I would say, what is the relationship that managers have with their clients? Because some, it's purely business. Some...
I was a bridesmaid at my manager's wedding.
So was I. Yeah. One of our employees, same person.
I was like, that is your family. You are making money with this person, and you are also gonna have to be honest with that person.
Yeah, and for us, we're really invested. I mean, you know, even us, like I'm very close to a lot of the creators that we have on our roster. Because for me, back to your point, it's like you're people. Before it's a business, you're a person. And I think that has been the best thing that I've kept in mind beyond like this last 5 years of the business, is remembering that people are people. Business is business and it's important. But if creators are having a hard time, they're people who have families, financial responsibilities. There's so much that's going on outside of just this brand deal. And it's like, if you can't empathize or sympathize with that person, then you're losing them as a client, as a friend, and then there's a massive disconnect. So I would say,
and even as a manager, like if you're a creator and you can't sympathize with when the manager for whatever reason has, I'm not saying every other day, but like for whatever reason has things going on in their lives and you're like, I don't care, like you're my manager, it's like, that's also a human.
Yeah. So I would say, ask them for their services, overview of services, ask them what the commission is. That's another thing. There's some management companies, typically 20% is standard. There are some that do 15. Agents typically take 10. In my opinion, agents feel a little bit more transactional and not as invested in the talent from what I've heard in the past. So I would say make sure to ask that. And then also, I think like ask about some strategy. Like why do you want to work with me, or why would I be a good fit on your roster? I think that's a question that we get a lot that I think is interesting, because you want to make sure that you're with a management company company that values you and doesn't just see you as another head on their roster, which is something that I think a lot of creators feel, that they just get lost in the sauce and that they're just another head.
Yeah, I think you could get, it's like, okay, well, people see that they want you, so then they grab you, but then they just shelf you so that nobody else has access to you. But it's like, are they really helping you scale your business? Are they really helping you achieve the things on your vision board or on your goal list, you know? And I think for me, like a lot of the times, like anytime that I've had any frustrations or concerns, I've been able to voice it and it's been shifted instantly, you know? So it's like, you're never gonna find anyone that's gonna be perfect, because just like any personal relationship, it's a business relationship that you gotta kind of like tug and pull and figure out how to like place correctly the puzzle piece so that it works. And throughout the relationship, that puzzle shape is changing and evolving. So you gotta be like, oh, you know, gotta figure it out.
Communication is so important.
Yeah, communication is so important. Are you able even to communicate with your manager if you have a problem? Like imagine I have an issue and I can't call Mel or text Mel, or it's, you know, a bigger problem and I say, hey, I want to call with you, and the call that I can get on the books with you is like 2 months out. Like that would be crazy, because it's like, well, you know, I need to talk to you, you know? So I think that's really important, knowing like the access. Like if you get a big time manager, but they're in Cannes or they're here and it's not important to see if you're okay, that would be a problem for me for sure. I think something else also to look when you're looking for management is figuring out, doing your research on what brands they've worked with. And do they have relationships, or have anybody in their roster worked with brands that are maybe dreams of yours? I know that I did that research when I was like getting on with you guys. And I was like, have they worked with brands that I want to work with or that I have worked with? And another misconception that I think a lot of influencers have is, okay, so I signed to a management company and I'm not getting jobs off the bat.
Yeah.
You know, and
oh my God,
I know that
drives me crazy.
yeah. And I know that you guys have a trial period. Some management companies do, some don't. But besides that, it's the fact that if I have relationships with a brand and I'm coming in to management, my goal for now giving the role of them to management is not necessarily that this is only the work they're going to do. They're doing other work by pitching and finding things in the meantime. But a lot of people are like, wait, you give all the contacts that you were in negotiations with or whatever in that moment to them? And I said, yes. You know why? Because I may have been negotiating a $4,000 brand deal and now they're coming in to talk. They're only coming in to talk if they know and they're going to be going to go get an $8,000 brand deal. Because if your management is negotiating the same rate that you were negotiating yourself, and you're now having to give 20%, in my opinion, that does not make sense.
Yeah.
You are now, I am losing money now. I am not gaining money. And I remember that one of the first brand deals, it was with Fenty that I signed on with you guys, and you guys doubled or tripled the rate that I had been negotiating. And one of my friends was like, yeah, but like that came inbound to you. So why are you giving 20%? I said, because when I was negotiating it, I was only getting X amount of money. They came in 2 weeks later and they tripled that rate. So yes, that is management, which when you were explaining what you guys do as a company, you explained the first half of it, which is legit managing. And then the second part of it is like, we go and we find you more opportunities. And I think that people have a misunderstanding of management when it comes to that, especially in the influencer world, because they don't want to give away their contacts. They don't want to give away the control. I had a big problem with the control, especially in the payment terms in the beginning. She is giggling because we went back and forth for a really long time.
Yeah. No, and I think I would love to dive into that piece because I feel like it really, I understand from the influencer perspective, like you're giving over your contacts.
Well, it's control. It comes down to control.
Yeah.
Like we have built as influencers, we have created these relationships. We have, you know, gone and built the relationships, all this stuff. And then we have to trust these people that we don't know in that time in the beginning specifically. Like, are these people going to leave us? Are they going to shelf us? Are they down for us? Or are they just trying to take our contacts to then be like, I have these 3 other girls I really want to put on, and you're just like a person that I knew had, you know?
Yeah, so I would say like ask around too. When you're interviewing management companies, interview several, feel the vibes. The vibes have to be vibing. That's like first and foremost for us. We've had calls with people who make the revenue and everything's great, but the vibes are not there, so we will not move forward. And I would say ask around, like ask people that are on their roster, what is the experience like? How's your experience with your talent manager? manager? Do you trust them?
Yeah.
Do you feel like they can grow your business? Have they grown your business? Like, ask those questions. I feel like we would want you to do that because we want to make sure when you come to us that and it takes time to build trust. And I completely understand that, and we get that as a company. But I think like what frustrates us sometimes is that people want to come in only for the brand and the brand deals and the flow, which we can't ever guarantee. So we try to provide value in all of these other things, right? The legal support, the finance support, the pitching, because we do unlimited amount of individual pitching.
Well, I think it comes down to the fact that brand management for influencers has been defined differently by many different people. And the reality is when you go get a manager in the influencer space, the real definition is they're going to manage what you currently have. Anything that they're able to add on to you is a plus, right? From an outside. And I think that's the reality that a lot of us forget, that a manager manages you. Doesn't mean a manager goes and from the get pitches you or brings you opportunities, which is why I say the 60 to 100 rather than the 0 to 50 when getting a manager. You have to already have so much going on that you are stressed, you are burning out, you can't handle it, don't know where to go, may need an assistant, but you're like, maybe I don't need an assistant, maybe I need a manager, somebody that is more knowledgeable in these terms that can organize my life. That is a manager.
Yeah. And think about all the, like, even if you do work with an agency and they take 20%, and even at the very least, they don't bring you deals, they're still handling all of the comms, all of the follow-ups. They're handling all of your pitching, which hopefully if you have a management company, they're pitching you individually and they're also pitching you within their roster. They're also handling finance. You don't have to worry about 20 million 1099s. Like that 20% still covers the work that was done, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't see that as a value add, that's completely fine, but don't negate it as like it's not important because it's still work that's being done. It's just, it doesn't meet the expectation that you wanted.
I think the only expectation that I would have first off would be they need to guarantee that they're going to bring me more money in the current deals that I'm getting than what I'm pitching myself. Because that's when I'm like, if they, you know, let's say it's like an indie company or a solo person and they only have certain relationships. I remember I was signed to a management company probably like 6 years ago and the company went under and the girl was like, hey, I still want to manage you like one off. And I was like, okay, cool. And she started sending me over deals that were $250. And like for me, like, listen, if your starting rate is $250, that's fine. But at that time, my rate was not anywhere close to $250. So I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense for me. And she's like, yeah, but they'll start building with you and they'll give you more. Next time it'll be $600. But I was like, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
I would say the rates is a whole other thing too. Like,
Yeah.
and ask about that on your intro call with the agency. How would you price me out? So we always ask, what are your rates? And then
Yeah.
we can see, all right, these are the deliverable rates. We also, as an agency, we charge for usages, we charge for exclusivity. And when we negotiate, if the budgets are set, we'll try to bring other things down.
And I think that's another important thing to ask when dealing with management. And I hope people are taking notes because when it comes to usage, not every management company is going to protect you. And something that I will say that you and my previous manager were really, really hard on was what is the usage terms, paid and organic, for this brand deal? Because a lot of the times they'll be like, hey, you're getting $6,000. It's fine. And don't realize that they paid 6 months of paid usage in the back end that if they were negotiating it correctly, you could be getting probably an extra $6,000 for that usage, you know? So it's like understanding what are the usage terms? Do you guys charge more for paid usage? What do you think my rate would be? And something that I think sold me on Society 18, I swear this sounds like I'm pitching Society 18, but I don't. Listen, they're a great company. Maybe they're capped right now. I'm not sure. You would have to figure out and ask. But what I will say really caught my eye, and they joke around with me and say that I'm the West Coast walking billboard, is the fact that I am an organizational freak when it comes to my business. And I maybe have some things in my life that are messy and I may act messy sometimes in other cases. But when it comes to my business, we're going to get this right, honey. Okay. And the moment that I signed with them and they showed me the Excel sheet that they created for me on where the money comes in, where it's coming out, when it's coming to me, when it got invoiced, by who, like it was just so detailed that I was like, oh my God, you guys are making me sound like I'm a legit business. Like, let's get it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that is what made me, like you said earlier, I'm going to give you flowers. It made me be like, oh, you are that bitch. You deserve this Excel sheet. You deserve organization in your life in this realm of work.
And that's another thing I would say, ask about transparency and like comms, because I think that's a whole other thing. We have been talking to influencers who say this management company made me get an email and I don't have access to it.
Oh, that I've got
And
that
I'm
first
like-
management company that went down. I couldn't log into it.
Yeah, so that's giving shady. Like, what do you have to hide? It's their business. And already making them, we have an option to use it or not. But I would say, like, making someone use your agency email, I would say if we were to ever do that, give them the login so they can see their business. At the end of the day, they want to be able to see what's coming in. And it's like, transparency is so important. So on top of the fact that we share email logins to your email, which you have every right to see.
I literally have it on my phone.
Exactly. We also do end of week recaps. At the end of every week, you know exactly where your business is. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with these bigger agencies, or even agencies in general that just don't really care about the creator. And especially if there's a creator that may not be rolling in dough, like they want to know when they're going to get paid. They want to know what am I being negotiated for? What have you pitched me to? We differentiate between outbound and inbound, so you know where the business came. We do 3 rounds of follow-ups. We do our mixers. Like for us, we're invested. And I've learned too as a business owner, because I take it so personally, that if it doesn't work out, it's fine. I think it's like just making sure that we did the best that we could, and the communication from both sides is very clear. And I think that's why communication is so important, and expectations. Because you can say, hey, I expected to talk to you at least once a month. Because after the trial, we do quarterly calls. But if you want to talk once a month, let's talk once a month. Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about content. And it's like, if we don't know that that's what you want, then we can't give it to you. So I would say communicate.
I think that for me, communication was really important in the beginning too. And I had my fair share of like needing to clarify how I like things being done, or how I think, my thought processes in certain things. And it wasn't a make it or break it situation. It was just like, let's just talk about it. Like I know that like we talked about the finance part, and like for me, it was really hard as a creator to know that I now had to, instead of giving away my 20%, I had to give everything, and then they would give me the money without the 20%. And it was something that it was a really hard pill to swallow.
I know.
For the first year, if anybody from Society 18 roster is watching, this is no longer available. But for the first year, I convinced her after so many complaints. She was like, I'm going to do it. But then obviously the company scaled. There was a finance system inserted into the company, and that got taken away from me. But it's like, it also made me understand and grow that I have to give up control in something, because there is transparency. So what are you so scared of,
Yeah.
And I think it was because I didn't have transparency in so many other things. And I also came from like the music world, where sometimes there wasn't transparency in those finances and royalties, and you never know what company it's coming from and where it's, and if it's right, if it's wrong, and all that stuff. But it comes down to, there shouldn't be a time where your manager, in my opinion, tells you that it's wrong to communicate or to be able to go over things, because your common sense is different from mine. You're behind the screen. I'm in front doing all these things and trying to like make money happen. And sometimes the way you created a structure may not instantly make sense to me.
Yeah, and I think that's why communication is so important. And I understood your gripes. You're like, well, I used to get paid, now I have to wait a whole week or a week and a half, or maybe even 2, because if it processes but it's not cleared, and then it's the next payment cycle, and then bill.com takes X, and it's just like, girl, and that has been my struggle too as a person, because I care and I get it. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. I was $80,000 in student loan debt. My finances were every dollar counted. So because I get what that's like, I was like, okay, we'll make certain exceptions for certain people that I'm just like, I as a person care, and I don't want to just be like, nope, deal with it. As a business, we've scaled, we've grown. And so now even our payment process is still faster than a lot of other agencies that I've heard, where we pay within 7 days of getting payment. We get paid early, you do too. Some agencies, if it's not due, they're not going to pay you. So ask about that as well. How often are you getting paid as a creator? Like, what is the payment process like? Like, what is the follow-up process like? Because the day that payment is late, you best believe the team is on top of it.
Yeah.
And so I would say, like, it's a learning, there's a curve. And
well, I think it's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a relationship. And in any relationship, family, friend, romantic, business, you're getting to know a new person. And in this instance, it's a whole group of people that are behind trying to make you successful and help you be successful. And in the same return, you guys are seeing this one new person that may have lived their whole lives doing things a certain way, and that's the only way they knew,
Yeah, and trauma. So people come, and PTSD is like real. They're like, well, they did this, and then I lost all these deals because of them, and they didn't tell me, and they didn't follow up, and I had to go to the brand, and they told me a whole different story. And it's like, there's a lot of bad managers out there. That was another reason why I wanted to get into this.
Or agencies.
Yeah. And I was just like, let me just save as many people as I can from the horror that I've seen on the other. Because before I was on the management side, I was working on behalf of brands. And there was management companies that I will not name, but that I blacklisted and will never work with unless the brand is like, I want this talent, and they were with the agency and I had no choice. But dealing with some management companies was literally a nightmare. So just make sure that the reputation of that agency or your manager is good, because there's a lot of ugly things happening on the other side. And if you get on Threads, you guys can see all the tea that's happening.
Yeah.
So I would say get on Threads because it's juicy.
Threads is messy lately.
It's so good.
It
I love
literally
it.
throws everyone under the bus, but it's so funny. No. So another thing also that I know we like tapped into a little bit, but another thing that I think would be great if you're looking for management is a trial period, and for the trial period to be allowed. So just kidding.
I will say initially we're doing 3-month trials, and what was happening was that talent was like within 3 months they weren't getting deals, and then they would be like, all right, I'm leaving. And for us, there's so many deals that would then come in after that and then would go directly to the influencer without us included, because this happens all the time. And I would say give your managers grace. We will pitch our roster. Let's say this happened with like a Clinique campaign, and literally we pitch our roster. They're interested in 3. We're waiting for feedback. They email those 3 individuals directly. We get those emails to our partnerships inbox, and then the influencer think it came from them, right? But it's like, no, we've been in conversation with this brand for months, weeks, sometimes years. Like things close. It takes a lot of time for things to close sometimes. So I would say be patient with your manager too. And I would say that we started doing the 3-month trial when we started the agency because we wanted to, date before we got married. But what we realized is that it was hurting us as a business, because the time that it takes to onboard talent now, between the website redesign, the one sheets, the pitching, the onboarding, the strategy, the content calendar, and then they leave us because we couldn't close one deal. Like we were managing their business, but we couldn't bring them a deal within the first 3 months. And it takes time. It just does. So you have to be patient. So we no longer offer the trial period, but we do the year, and we are very invested, and it is a partnership.
I think that's something that also can be a little bit confusing to influencers, is understanding the transparency as well that they have to give to the managers. And what I mean by that is, if I have a partnership, let's say with a brand, I keep saying Fenty because it's the first one that comes to mind, but if I know a lot of brand reps at Fenty, let's say, and I'm coming to you and I'm like, okay, I want this year or whatever, there's nothing wrong with telling them, hey, I know that they're not going to offer X amount of money that you're fighting in, but I'm willing to take it. And I think that a lot of the times influencers sometimes get scared about is that they present a brand to managers with a relationship that they already have going on. And then the managers come in and maybe get them one deal. And then next thing you know, the influencer sees 3, 4, 5 people from the roster get opportunities. Mm-hmm. How would you go about saying those experiences? Because that actually happened to me. But what I ended up finding out is that when that happened to me, the brand rep actually screenshotted to me that the manager was pitching those people before even pitching me. And she was like, I think this is kind of weird because you connected us, but she keeps mentioning these 3 people, but like we were talking about you. Ooh. So how would you, from the management side, and what advice would you give to the influencer?
So what we've done is, and always will do, is if an opportunity comes from the influencer to us, we will manage it and negotiate it for that influencer. The only time we will send recommendations is if they're asking us for them because they have additional spots on the campaign, but not in place of, because at the end of the day, like they reached out to you, we want to make this work for you. The only other time that we would, and I would ask too, like if you're a creator, vetting management, ask them about their process in terms of pitching and negotiating, because I think that's really important. But I would say, because it's a trust thing too, you have to trust that if your manager's telling you that they're not doing it, that they're not. That's really shady and so wrong. I feel like it's such an awful thing to do, unless like we're preemptively asked for a specific list because they have maybe additional spots on the campaign. We won't send anything until the deal's signed, till delivered. And we do that to help everyone, right? So if you just worked with, obviously you're working with Genesis, right? And we closed a deal, that was different because it came before them. But let's say like we just worked with with Dyson. We know that you would love to work with Dyson. We will close that deal for that creator, and then we will pitch other creators offline, another chain, as like, hey, are you open to other recommendations? I think that's actually what we do. Let us know, like, excited to partner off, send the contract to legal. Let us know if you're looking for other creators. Would love to find more ways to work together. And we just share that across the board. But at no instance are we going to say like, oh, Yanina's great, but like, look at all these other creators that would be great if it's someone that came directly to you. I feel like that's kind of a betrayal of trust.
And I think that's a fear that a lot of creators have when giving away the connections or adding to CC, and now you guys taking on. But I think, like you said, ultimately the biggest thing in this topic is communication and trust, but also taking that leap of faith that you've done your research with the person, that you've asked the questions, and knowing that any time that you're going to scale your business, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I hope that everybody that heard this took notes, because I actually was like, wow, she's saying something really good. This is great. I hope they're listening. And, you know, this is just a forever evolving industry. It's a great industry that is growing. It's very saturated, yes, but if it's meant for you and if you do the hard work, you will have a place in it. And I just want people to be smarter about it, because you could have a platform. It does not mean that you have a platform that you can build from, does not mean that you can make it your livelihood. And you have to know what it takes to get into it. It's not a jump in and out. It's not a, if I feel like it today. You got to fully commit. It's a marriage that you really got to fully commit to. And just like a marriage, it's not always going to be easy. There's years that I've made tons of money. There's years that I've made a little bit less. Last year, actually, I was looking at the sheet and talking to Mel randomly. Mel's my manager, the other night, and I got so sidetracked about what the word inbound and outbound is. And not sidetracked, I got so confused about it. And I was showing to another creator what that meant. And I realized that last year, there was a lot of things that you guys negotiated for me that came inbound. That meant came to my email already addressed to me. These people wanted to reach out to me. This year, it was actually 85 to 90% outbound of the brand deals I actually did. And, you know, that means they pitched me, they had relationships, they reached out to certain brands for me that I had said I had in my goals list. So it is a move and shake, a dance that it's going to be a back and forth. Next year, it could be an equal 50-50. Who knows, you know? And that's not to take away which ones were the biggest, which ones were the smallest. Like, you know, when it's something like Genesis, which was open influence, right? It's like, yes, I have to do the thing. They still have to negotiate it. They have to still break down crazy contracts that collectively open influence. Then you have a company like Genesis that is so big, that is under Hyundai, that has all these terms, all these red lines that I will not know what these words are.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like, there's so many layers to it that I think you just have to take into account. If you want to grow, there's going to be bigger milestones and bigger mountains that you're going to have to go through that I really don't want to put time into.
Yeah.
You know, I want to work on the creative, and on my off time that I don't have to work on the creative, I want to be a human.
Yeah. And I would say, to add to what you just said, it's a great industry to be in if you're passionate about it and you want to put the work in, and be open to pivoting, because I feel like it's been year one of this business and where we are now. Year one, it was like Instagram, YouTube deals were crazy. YouTube deals were like coming in like so regularly. And now it's YouTube shorts and they're far and few between, and TikTok to like, it's just be able and have the agility to pivot with the platforms, with the content styles, with your business, affiliate links. Like there's so many ways that you can make money outside of just brand partnerships. Snapchat, people are making lots of money on Snapchat, and no one ever thought that Snapchat was a place where creators would be making. I know people that are putting 100 snaps a day making like $20,000 a week, and it's actually wild. So I would say find your place in this industry, in this space. If you're really passionate about it, there's ways to make money. Even if you're just doing UGC or UGC for brands, or working with brands or consulting brands, like there's so much money in this space. It's just find your space, figure out what it is that you want to do, how you want to post about it, build your business, and then be smart about management and make sure you know when it's the time to find a good team.
And you know, one last thing that I will say to close it off, which is something in the beginning really I should have said, but when I first started in this industry, everybody told me to be super niche, and I just felt like I didn't have a niche, and it was a big problem that I think stopped me in the beginning because I was like, I'm not an expert at anything. I'm like good at a lot of things, but I'm not an expert at it. And I don't want to be known for just one thing and then just be that. And that's okay. If there's any time where you can choose, I would say 3 things that you really like and just hone in on those 3 things. Make sure, and this is not going into marketing, which it's funny because maybe there needs to be a part 2 to this, but like make sure that there's your first 3 rows of any of your platforms, whether it's your first 3 rows of your YouTube page, whether it's your first 3 rows of your Instagram, whether it's your first 3 rows of your TikTok, or if it's your, I forgot what it's called, but the Snapchat profile, it's like, I think spotlight, your spotlights, that it showcases your 3 niches that you really come normal to you, that it comes natural, that you can do on a rainy day, on a sunny day, when you're happy, when you're sad, that you know you can do, that if you don't feel like doing a makeup tutorial, you can do this, that if you don't feel like doing that, you can do that, so that you have enough and it encompasses who you are as a person, so that brands, companies, managers, viewers can see and identify who you are. Like if you look at my Instagram, I'm gonna always have, at least in one of my 2 rows, I'm gonna have something beauty, I'm gonna have something fashion, and I'm gonna have something about my podcast. Why? Because those are the things that I'm most focused on right now. I may throw in there a funny video, I may throw in there a carousel of dump, but yeah, food, but I'm a foodie. I'll have foodie sprinkled in there, but it's not in every row. It's whenever I feel like it. And the more you follow me, you start getting to know that I'm a foodie, that there's more elements to me, that I like doing this, that I like doing that I'm a super girl's girl. Like, but in your first eye-catching moments, you have to show what you're trying to sell. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a product. You are the product, you embody the product, your spirit's supposed to shine through to it. And you have to believe that you are that before any other brand is going to put a $ on you and offer you money, before any manager sees the value in you. And I know that like I do say like this or that, but at the end of the day, I humbly do feel that I am the motherfucking shit when it comes to what I do. And it's the only reason why I can say humbly, I know what I'm doing. I may not be in the millions, but that does not mean that I can't reach $1 million in my bank account, you know? And I think it's take away the stigma of there's too many people, I don't have followers. I know somebody that recently just got a $6,000 brand deal, showed me the email, and they have less than 1,000 followers on Instagram.
Oh my God. So
and
can you give me their contact? Cause like,
yeah. And she was just like, wow, I can't believe this. Like I was able to lock this in, but she's consistent in all her stuff, you know? And you just got to do it. You just got to do it. And if you can't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in you.
Yeah, 100%. Also, I need that contact. But also, yeah, everything you said. And also, like, you should have strategy calls with our creators because, like, we talk about the first 3 rows all the time. And I love that it's there.
Yeah.
But yes, the first 3 rows are really important as an agency or brand. If I'm going to your page and the first 3 rows aren't relevant to the brand or the product that I'm trying to market, I'm going to keep it moving.
Yeah.
And also make sure you have your contact in your bio. That's another thing that a lot of my brand and agency contacts get really upset about because they work on computer. Tiny hack, but really important. And you might not think it's that important, but it actually helps a lot of brand and agencies contact you because a lot of times if they're on desktop at work, they don't have the button email on desktop. So they have to go to their phone and it's just another step that they may not take. So I would say keep your email in your bio.
So our listeners want to know, do you think it's too late to start or is it too saturated?
I don't think it's ever too late to start anything. And I don't think it's too saturated. I think you just have to find your niche. You have to be consistent and you have to be passionate about the work because it's not an easy industry to just break into and, you know, pop off. Some people just go viral, but I would say like it's the long game.
The long game, yeah. And I also think that it's not too late to start because there's so many types of creators from over 40s, over 50s, over 60s to, you know, the fact that there's a space for everyone. There's different types of personalities. The way I may say something, somebody else is going to deliver it different or attract a different audience. Another question that there was is how to navigate being a polymath creator, someone with multiple types of content subjects, niches, and interests. And I think I talked about this, but I don't necessarily think a niche now is 1. I think a niche should be 3. We're multidimensional people. We're multidimensional women. There are days that I wake up happy, sad. You know, there's days that I want to dress up like a tomboy and other days where I'm wearing heels and other days where I'm really bright and other days where I'm dark. And I think if you can figure out and jot down 3 passions of yours, 3 interests of yours that you could make content about, that the content comes easy to, of concepts, I think that that's more than enough and you don't have to hone into one. And with time, you will sprinkle other little aspects of yourself and of your life into it. What do you think?
I agree with that. I think we are multifaceted and multidimensional. And I think you don't always have to just niche down, you can niche out. And I think back to what we were saying about creating content and making sure that those first 3 rows are representative of like the spaces you want to work in and showcasing your best work, I think is really important.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode. I feel like we talked about so much. I really, really hope that you at least have 5 new bullet points in your notes if you are looking to be in this industry, if you are in this industry, or you're looking to scale your business. And thank you so much for all the insight, for showing us about your business side of things and how you started and where you're at now. And obviously, you know that I'm a big fan, so I can't wait to see where it goes and all the things that we're going to do together.
Thank you for having me.
Well, until next time, this is another episode of Similarly Different. Bye.